He says maybe validity is not the issue in terms of tradition, Jewish tradition. He says maybe validity is not the issue, but meaningfulness. For Messianics, whether Jew or Gentile, who do not come from a Jewish background, celebrating the Shabbat and feasts is a Jewish manner, in a Jewish manner, gives us that Hebraic and Jewish connection, much like using Yeshua over Jesus, even though both may be said to be valid. And in trying to observe some of these traditions that have historical and biblical basis, and which even Yeshua and his disciples took on as their custom, we feel a better sense of connection to them. We are pointed to our Hebraic origins, and we get an idea how to observe the Moedim. Otherwise, we will be reinventing the wheel with the possible pitfall of integrating pagan traditions. Then we're back to the Holy Roman Empire. Years and years spending time at our former churches did not produce those results, only replacement and dispensational theologies. Also, hang on just a sec. I want to be very careful there, because although that might be the experience that many have had, and maybe even the majority have had, that is not necessarily the experience that we've all had. I know several churches in my city alone that are Bible-based that do not teach replacement theology or dispensational theology. Okay, anyway. He ends his email with this. Also, we must be careful promoting Christian services, especially the modern ones. Many are highly commercialized, secularized, and even politicized. Just my humble opinion. Okay, a lot to unpack here. Do you want to go first or you want me to? Okay.
I was thinking, like, what I'm hearing, one of the points that Joel made that stuck out is like, well, we say Yeshua. Why do we want to say Yeshua rather than Jesus? And he's saying, is that the same reason? Whatever that reason is it rooted in the same impulse to say, I want to look at a rabbinic siddur? In my world, those are separate things. To me, those aren't the same impulse. The reason I like to say Yeshua is not the same reason. I mean, it's not connected to a desire to use rabbinic literature to try to paint a background for the gospel.
I would totally agree with you. And I would go a step farther. You know, I think that there is a notion within the Torah movement that if I go into a synagogue or a messianic synagogue, I don a talit and a kippah, a yarmulke, and, the Torah is paraded around and people kiss it. And, there all these different things, that I'm doing what Yeshua did. These traditions are late traditions. They are not things that we had in the first century. This does not connect you back to Yeshua. Now, I'm not saying that they're wrong. I'm not saying that there's anything wrong with that. If you want to put on a talit and a kippah and you want to daven at a synagogue, that's up to you. I'm not going to say that there's anything necessarily wrong with that. However, what I am going to say is that the idea that this connects you to the first century Yeshua that went to the synagogue as was his custom, it doesn't. That they weren't doing these things in the first century. These are later traditions. So it's fine that might make you feel like you're better connected to the Jewish people, which may be. You may have a better you might feel better connected to the modern state of Israel, modern Judaism, by doing a lot of these customs. But that doesn't necessarily mean that you're better connected to the first century synagogue, because most of what I would say, the majority of what we have within Judaism and within modern Jewish tradition is late. It wasn't going on in Yeshua's time. Now, I'm with Rob on the idea that, okay, Yeshua's name, yeah, I mean, and I interchange Yeshua and Jesus regularly, even in my sermons, which I'm sure people at the church that I co-pastor, I'm sure that they're probably confused.
Is he talking about the same guy?
Yeah, exactly. But even my kids now know, and they'll switch too. So, I mean, anyway, the point is that, we would have to actually, and Joel, I would have to ask the question, which specific traditions are you talking about? Now, if we're talking about the Moedim, once again, many of the Moedim, and when we say Moedim, for those who might not know, we're talking about the high holy days found within the scriptures. So things like Yom Kippur, certainly fasting goes back prior to the 1st century on Yom Kippur. Isaiah talks about the great fast, and it seems as though he's talking about Yom Kippur. So things like this, certainly we can say yes, but it seems once again we're talking about biblical commands. The command to afflict your soul. So, and the fact that Isaiah talks about it as a fast seems to imply that biblically this was a accepted biblical tradition. So I think there's a difference between doing things that the Bible teaches us to do and trying to adopt Jewish tradition, modern Jewish tradition, in order to transport us back to the 1st century. Thank you so much for watching this video. Tell us your thoughts on this subject by leaving a comment in the comment section. Make sure you like, share, subscribe, and enable those notifications. And we'll see you in the next video.